In the world of Japanese sports cars, it doesn't get much more iconic than a Nissan Z. This vehicle has been in production for over 50 years, and among the enthusiast community, there is a huge following of people that just love the Z sports car, which is why an all-new version is a pretty significant deal. And for 2023, we finally have a redesigned version of the Z. It's now simply called the Nissan Z, and what Nissan has done here is taken the old bones of the previous generation and updated it to bring it into the modern 21st century, along with dropping in a twin turbocharged V6, making a nice even 400 horsepower. So as you can see, I've already had a chance to review this car out in Las Vegas earlier this year, but this week, as you can see, Nissan has loaned me the very limited edition 2023 Z Proto Spec. It's painted in this beautiful shade of yellow, and the company is only building around 240 of these. So if you guys are looking for a new Z, how does the redesigned version stack up to its predecessors? Stay tuned to find out. So before we start talking about the redesigned styling for this new Z, I want to remind you guys what's powering this vehicle. Now, the old Z had a naturally aspirated VQ 3.7-liter V6. It's now got a smaller engine. This is the company's very familiar 3-liter twin-turbo V6 that they plucked out of the Infiniti Q50 Red Sport. Now, internally, this motor is known as the VR30DDT, which stands for, or DTT, which stands for a twin turbocharged engine. That's right, we now have two turbos under the hood of the Z car. We haven't seen that since the 300ZX from the days in the 90s, and the results are pretty impressive. This is a 3-liter V6 with direct injection. It's got two turbos pumping in nearly 15 pounds of boost to produce 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. That's a nice increase over the 332 and 350 from the naturally aspirated engine, and torque has increased significantly from the old VQ motor as well. It all goes out through either a 6-speed manual, which my tester has. It's the same 6-speed from the previous generation, upgraded with an Exedi clutch, high-performance clutch, and a carbon fiber reinforced drive shaft, or you can also get a 9-speed automatic transmission that is built by Jatco that shares its basic design with the 9-speed automatic that you find in a lot of modern Mercedes products. All Zs continue to be rear-wheel drive. If you guys go for a performance trim and up like this Proto Spec, you'll get a limited slip differential. So that's gonna help to put the power down. Fuel economy is rated at either 1928 for the automatic. This manual version gets 1824. Premium gas is required, and Nissan is specific about making sure that you try to put 93 octane in this car. If you guys live in California, it is a little bit harder to find that. They recommend using an octane booster to get the max performance. The new Z is a little bit heavy by sports car standards. The manual weighs in around 3,500 pounds. The automatic is around 100 pounds heavier. In total, that's around 100 pounds heavier versus its main competitor, the Toyota Supra. Now, in terms of performance, this car has a top speed of around 155 miles an hour. The automatic should be able to get to 60 in around 4 seconds. The manual is probably going to be around a half a second to a second slower. We've got our testing equipment. We'll see what we can actually get in the real world. But closing the hood, let's go ahead and take a look at the styling of this Proto Spec version. It looks exactly like the Z concept car that they showed a few years ago. This paint color is not unique to the Proto Spec, but it's the only color that you can get on this trim, where only 250 of them are going to be built. It's called Akazichi Yellow, and I'm probably mispronouncing that color name horribly. It's a Japanese color name, but it looks really iconic along with the two-tone roof. This car attracts attention everywhere. I literally picked it up from the airport the other day, and it got attention and stares from everyone out on the road. And how could it not? Look at the design. You can see the headlights. They kind of have a little bit of a lineage, a throwback to the original 240Z with the half moons for the LED daytime running light. The turn signal, you have LED low and high beams. No fog lights on the car. Instead, this area here is very clean. This squared off grille here was very controversial when Nissan first revealed it. You can see here they've kind of offset some of the controversy with this kind of inner rectangles painted in gray on the inner spokes of the grille. This, of course, is all functional, loud cooling for the engine. It's got the new Z logo. This color, you can see, is beautiful. It really shines and sparkles with a lot of metallic fleck when the sunlight hits it. But moving around the side profile, you can see this is still built on the FM platform, which means it has the same 100.4-inch long wheelbase. It's actually a 3-inch longer wheelbase versus the Supra. And its overall length at 172.4 inches long is 5 inches longer than the old 370Z, and it's at literally the same size as the new GR Supra. So you can see what Nissan had right in their crosshairs for a competition. The wheels, you can take your pick between either an 18 or a 19-inch wheel. These are the Ray 19-inch wheels that are also finished in bronze. This is unique to the Proto Spec. You also get the Akebono yellow painted calipers. Those are a 4-piston caliper with a 14-inch rotor. That's how you're going to know this is the Proto Spec as opposed to just being a performance. The regular performance Zs get these 19-inch wheels in a gray finish, while the Sport Zs have an 18-inch wheel. The bronze and the yellow caliper is what you're going to give it away as the Proto Spec version. Now looking around this to the profile, you can see it has that traditional styling details of a Z. I also really like the two-tone roof. It's got that signature aluminum blade here going across the roof panel with the Z badge here on the rear fender. The door handle, you can see, looks pretty similar to the old one. It even opens up the same way. There's a button here to unlock and lock it. The mirrors have a nice integrated turn signal mirror. Like I said, the vehicle itself just has really classic, very throwback styling, but it also makes it look more modern. Now, a lot of people really love the rear of the car a lot more than the front because it shows its lineage to the original, or to the 300ZX from the 90s. And I love how Nissan did that, especially with the taillights. You can see it's got full LED taillights, LED turn signals. You've got this really nice, tasteful rear lip spoiler. And then you have down here, nicely integrated exhaust with a rear diffuser with these big, massive twin exhaust pipes, which the engine itself sounds decent. Nissan actually offers a performance exhaust as an accessory, a dealer accessory, but let's go ahead and fire it up. You can hear how this engine sounds real quick. And while the engine does sound good, I must admit the Supra definitely has a better sound to it. Now over here you can see Nissan logo, there's the signature Z badge, there's your backup camera, and then when you want to open up the trunk, you can see there's a button right underneath the middle portion of the Nissan logo. Open that up, you can see the opening is larger versus the Supra, but the company says you only get around 7 cubic feet of space back here. Obviously, no back seats on the new version. Instead, you just have that strengthening brace. This looks identical to the old Z. But I will say that even though this is about 3 cubic feet less versus the Supra, the space itself definitely looks a lot more usable. And I was able to fit pretty much a 22-inch size roller bag along with my backpack here, and it had room probably for another roller bag. So Nissan obviously has a winner when it comes to the exterior design, but what about the interior? Now, before we get inside, I want to show you guys the very old Nissan key fob. Now, I rag on this key fob for being old, but it's a really nice size. You can see with the Z, you just have 3 simple buttons, lock, unlock, and panic. It's got the new Nissan logo. It's got their intelligent access key. I'm not entirely sure you can access this car via your smartphone. I've never had access to the Nissan Connect app, but for those of you who own one of these vehicles, let me know in the comment section below. Now, getting inside, you can see the door handle is pretty similar to the old Z. It's a different shape, but it opens up the same way from the side. There's a button on the side of the door handle that locks the door. To unlock it, there's no sensor on the back. You actually have to touch the door handle again, and that will unlock the door for you if you have the key fob. Now, you can see the Proto Spec includes a unique cabin. The seats in general, you can see, have this really cool two-tone of leather and Alcantara with this kind of like yellow stitching, the accent stitching and the yellow accents throughout the seats. This is exclusive to the Proto Spec. You can get this car, of course, with the blue interior, a black interior, a red interior. So I love how Nissan is doing colors here, which is definitely nice, but the yellow on yellow is definitely a nice addition. You can see the door panel here almost looks like the old Z. You can really tell that Nissan is trying to save a little bit of money here by recycling parts, but they're strategically doing it. But I will say that this door handle here, the window controls here, the materials are at least soft touch plastic, which is nice. It's a soft touch injection molded plastic. And then you can see here some yellow stitching with a nice suede here, a padded area over here. It's hard touch plastic down here, but you can see these window controls definitely feel old. It's not the newer stuff that I've seen in like the new Pathfinder or the new Rogue, for example. The steering wheel also looks pretty nice. The seats, they kind of have a two-tone of manual adjustments with power adjustments over there where you can adjust the recline and move it forward and back, but this is how you adjust the height. So kind of interesting, no memory seats, but the 8-speaker Bose stereo in this car sounds good. It has active noise cancellation. If you guys get tired of listening to the engine, you can also crank up the tunes, which also sounds pretty good. These seats are also heated but Nissan does not offer ventilated seats on the new Z, sadly. Now getting in, it has a low step-in height, as you'd expect for a sports car. It is a little bit easier to get in and out of versus the Supra because the hood or the roof is a little bit higher, but getting in and shutting the door actually still has a solid sounding thunk. This is a really old platform, so it's great that Nissan's able to, give you that impression of quality. Now, manual transmission, like I said, make sure it's in neutral, put the clutch in, and then the shifter, or the start button is right here by the shifter. And it's amazing how when this thing starts up, it actually almost sounds like a VQ engine. But remember, this is the new 3-liter twin-turbo V6, which surprised it lets you rev it up to 5,500 RPM, but it definitely doesn't have the noises that I really like from the Supra with the exhaust crackles and pops. Instead, the Z just has a very mechanical noise, a very just sweet sounding V6 noise. There is a little bit of vibration, surprisingly, through the shifter and the pedals. That's also a very trademark Z thing. Now, in terms of the materials, you can see this is a soft touch injection molded plastic, which is nice. This right here, however, is very, very cheap. It's hard touch plastic. There was a time where Nissan would stitch that with leather. I do love the new 12.3-inch fully digital display. It is customizable, which I'll show you that in a moment. The steering wheel, you can see, also is new. It's got a lot of piano black plastic. I'm surprised it's not a flat bottom wheel. The leather feels nice. You can see the wheel itself is manual tilt and telescoping. The old Z, there was a time where they had gauges that would move with the wheel, but this is pretty nice as well. The horn sounds good. It actually doesn't sound like a pathetic puny horn like in the GR Supra, so bravo Nissan for that. The controls here, you can see that controls your adaptive cruise control, which this car has, even with the manual. You can also change the gauge display. If I push this button here, you can see the meter view. This is the sport meter view, which shows the tach front and center with a digital speedo, and then the boost gauge. You can also put in things like a G-force meter. You can adjust your shift lights. You can look at your tire pressure along with engine oil and water temp. Push that, you can see, change the meter view. You can go to a normal mode, which gives you a 2-dial design. We've seen this look in other Nissans before. And then there's also the enhanced view that also shows you an even smaller tach and speedo, but then gives you a very large display in the center, which you can literally put all your different sources in there. So that all looks very high tech. I really love how Nissan gave this car a very modern looking interior with the new dash design. Along with that, you have a 9-inch infotainment system. This is the Nissan Connect infotainment system with wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. This is the bigger screen. I believe an 8-inch screen is standard on the sport trim. And then you can see here the 3 traditional gauges there, which are still analog. There's a turbo speed gauge, a boost gauge, and then a voltmeter there. This again is a throwback to the old Z, which is kind of nice. And then over here you can see you still have a volume knob. This new infotainment system looks good. I think it's a good size for what it is. It's actually a little bit larger versus the one that you get in the Supra, which is 8.8 inches, surprisingly. And then you can see CarPlay works pretty well. It's very quick and snappy. And then going back over here to the actual display, this car does have embedded GPS, which, as you can see, works pretty well. Nissan's been kind of updating this over the years, and it's relatively easy to use. It's easy to navigate through. And then the CarPlay is there. The wireless CarPlay I found worked for the most part pretty well. There were times where it would be a little bit slow to boot up when you first start the car, but a lot of cars are also like that as well. When you put the car into reverse, which you have to do by pushing down on the shifter and going all the way to the right and then back, you can see the camera quality is trash. It literally looks old. It doesn't match the beautifully rendered graphics that you find like on the CarPlay or the rest of the screen. It does have trajectory and parking sensors, but again, really crummy backup camera, and there's no 360 camera, so I'm just not entirely sure why they didn't upgrade the camera resolution there. You can see here you have single zone automatic climate control. It almost looks like a manual, but there's an auto function here. You adjust the temp there, and then you also can adjust the airflow. Over here you can see USB-C, USB-A. There's an area here where you can put your phone, but that's not that's not a wireless charger. I'm kind of annoyed that it's not, but at least my iPhone 12 Pro Max fits perfectly there. That's to turn on and off the automatic rev matching function. The shifter, as you can see, it has pretty good throws. I like the throws, but the way it goes into the gears can feel a little clunky sometimes. The clutch also is on the heavier side. The engagement points toward the end of the travel. You can see these heated seat controls are ancient, along with the same control here to open up the rear hatch. You have one cup holder here. Push this or slide this back, it reveals another cup holder. This center console, as you can see, is padded. You have a traditional manual cable style handbrake for those of you who want to do those J-turn drifts. Open this up, you can see there's a center console storage area, which isn't very big. My wallet and sunglasses just kind of barely fits in there. The seats, as I mentioned earlier, look great. They also are comfortable on shorter trips, but I took this on a longer drive and I noticed the seats, I was squirming around in them a little bit. The bottom cushion for me wasn't super comfortable. And then to access the seat controls, it's kind of clunky. It's over here on the passenger side, which again is carried over from a lot of other Nissan products. The glove box, you can see, is damped but not lined with felt. It's not the biggest glove box actually, so that's kind of something to keep in mind. The auto dimming rearview mirror, you can see, is nice. The view out of the back is good. You have incandescent map lights in here, and then also I noticed the ambient lighting at night, there really isn't any. So you can tell Nissan cut cost in here, but they at least got the essentials right. We have a beautiful display here, a larger display here, new steering wheel, updated seats. But in terms of some of the stuff here, like the door panels and the switchgear, it's pretty evident that this vehicle shares a lot of parts with its predecessor. So here we are back in the brand new 2023 Nissan Z. This one here being the Proto Spec car. There's only going to be 240 of these built for the US, so it's an even more rare version of the Z. And we're driving the one with the manual transmission. When I first had a chance to drive this car out in Las Vegas, I drove both the manual and automatic. The automatic is obviously going to be the quicker one. It's the 9-speed built by Jatco, but has some similarities with the Mercedes 9-speed as well. That's going to be the one that Nissan claims 0 to 60 is around 4 seconds. The manual is going to be a little bit harder to launch. It does come with launch control. They've basically taken the same 6-speed manual from the previous generation and upgraded the clutch. It's now an Exity high-performance clutch. It's got a carbon fiber reinforced drive shaft. For the first and the second gear especially is going to be important to have that upgrade. And overall, it feels pretty similar to the last Z that I drove. It actually has kind of a little bit of a crude, truckish, unrefined feel. And for those of you who like the old Z, you're probably gonna really enjoy that. The manual does include launch control, but it's a matter of basically just putting the clutch in, flooring the accelerator. It holds the revs at around 4,000 RPM, and then you just dump the clutch. You have to kind of feather the clutch, or you have to get the launch right. And this is a rear-wheel drive vehicle. It's got a limited slip differential. Let's go ahead and see what we can get here. Now, I'm not the best shifter. I'm gonna go ahead and admit that. I'm an intermediate shifter, but let's just see what I can get here. I'm gonna leave the traction control on. Let's just see here. Launch control. Now it does hit 60 in second gear, which is nice, and I got 4.87 seconds there, which honestly isn't bad. This vehicle does have no lift shift, which I tried in from first to second, but then the traction control, I could feel it cutting power slightly. It almost has like a slight hesitation, a slight delay, but I believe it's the traction control cutting power. Now, I don't necessarily want to turn off the traction control because I am on public roads, so I don't want to get this vehicle too sideways, but I have to say, the manual surprisingly is not that difficult to launch. It's just difficult trying to get a consistent number with this manual transmission. That was better. All right, so I turned off the traction control there, and then stupidly I forgot to actually turn on my 0 to 60 timer. So we'll see if we can get another launch in there, but that was better because I noticed when I didn't have that on, it didn't cut power. When I went from first to second, I did the no left shift, it didn't actually cut power. So this could probably get it closer to the 4.5 second range. I think Road and Track or Car and Driver did 4.3 with the manual. That was their best time that they got, which honestly is going to require, you know, this like a really good surface, great weather condition, somebody who's really good at shifting. I'm, like I said, intermediate. I'm not an expert shifter, but I can shift, obviously. But overall, the Z still has a very, very fun, like, typical Z feel. The thing is about this car is it's built on the same FM platform that dates back to like 2003. So in a digital world, this is an analog car. So for those of you who think like, oh my God, I hate all these new cars. They're so digital. They don't drive. They just drive themselves. They're electric. This is a middle finger to all of those digital cars because it is so visceral. It's so mechanical. It's even like loud in here. That's the thing is like, sports cars, even like modern sports cars, you drive like a Cayman or a 911 and they actually still feel like sports cars, but they've also gotten way more refined. This, obviously, Nissan has done what they can with this platform to make it feel a little bit more refined, but I also get a sense that I'm driving something that's older, that's a little bit more crude, and that's, hey, if you like that, you're gonna really appreciate something like this. That limited slip diff really tries its best to put the power down, and it is fun. I have to say, this car still obviously is going to put a smile on your face. The biggest competitor, though, is the Toyota Supra. And I'll talk about the comparisons between the Supra with the manual and the automatic. I've had a chance to drive both vehicles, obviously. Not back to back, but I have had a chance to drive both. And let me tell you, the Z is still really good. It just doesn't feel quite as good as the Supra from times. But let's go ahead and see. I have the traction control still off here. Let's go ahead and see what I can get. Launch control. .4 seconds there, so wow, that was better. So yes, turn off the traction control in this car, dump the clutch, or use the launch control, dump the clutch. 4.4 seconds is very possible, and that's good. I'm gonna take that number. It's about a half a second slower than the automatic. The best that I got in the automatic, I think, was 3.9 or 4 seconds, so just kind of keep that in mind. It's gonna require you some patience and some practice to get the launch right, but get it right and that's awesome. Yeah, so when I finally stopped worrying about the 0 to 60 time, this is where this car, it doesn't even matter because of just the feel. The manual transmission is a nice shifting transmission, just a little bit crude at times, but hey, that's part of the character. The steering is light, but also quick. Doesn't really translate much in terms of feedback. The chassis of this car definitely feels old still. I mean, I can tell Nissan has updated what they can. It's actually, in terms of the suspension is the same. They've updated the shocks and adjusted the tuning. But man, that engine, you feel the turbos kick in this thing. It's got some pretty noticeable turbo lag. But as soon as it kind of gets into the boost, this thing feels relentless. It just keeps wanting to pull. And it sounds good. You know, this Z has a nice sound. It has that typical Nissan noise. Actually, it almost reminds me of a VQ, but this is the VR30 DDT motor, and it's interesting how it still sounds like a VQ, especially when you get the revs up. It's just kind of like, oh my God, I can see the enthusiast community going nuts for this car because the boost potential, the tuning potential is just there. And that's kind of the beauty about the new Z, is it feels like a tuner's wet dream, this car. But now it finally feels modern. I mean, we have an interior that's been redesigned. Visibility in this car is also good. I can see out of the front, the sides, the back. This is better visibility than the Supra. And in terms of the ride quality, the ride is borderline like too firm at times. It's weird because on a smooth surface like this, the ride feels good. But then, like, I took it out on the highway. I was on a 2-hour drive in this car, and I noticed that the ride was a little firm on rougher surfaces. But then, like, the seats also, they are comfortable, but they also get a little, I found myself squirming a lot because after like an hour, they were a little uncomfortable for me. So try the seats out for yourself, see if you like the seats and, you know, for your actual body type. But in terms of just day-to-day driving, there's no drive modes for the manual. The automatic has like standard and sport, but this model here, you just kind of drive it. There's no adjustments really needed other than turning the traction control. This car does have the active rev matching, which, as you can hear, rev matches for you on your downshifts, which you can turn off via a button over here. The clutch in this car also is, I'd say, medium in terms of its heft, or in terms of its feel as well. It engages right toward the end of the travel. I didn't find myself stalling this car very often, which is good. But I don't like the feel of the shifter. I much prefer the shifter actually in the new Toyota Supra. God, this thing, it loves to get sideways a little too. That's what's really nice. Now I do want to just test it out because I noticed there was something here that kind of annoyed me, which was the lag. But let's go ahead and turn off the nannies again. 4.8 there. So again, that was going slightly uphill there. But I'll take the 4.4. That was my quickest time, and I'm happy with that. That's actually 0.4 seconds faster versus what I got when I was out in Vegas. So should you buy the Z with a manual or an automatic? I don't know. I'd have to drive the automatic back to back, but right now the automatic has a stop sale. The manual though, this is fun. This is refreshing in a world full of electric vehicles and SUVs. This mechanical, visceral drive takes me back in time. It makes me feel like a kid again. Now, earlier this year, when I first had an opportunity to drive the new Z out in Las Vegas, I was expecting to like this car, and I did. But after spending a full week with this Proto Spec model, I have to say, between the Z and the new GR Supra, we live in a world where you can still buy a very fast, very mechanical, visceral, analog type sports car, but the Z definitely feels a little bit more analog versus the Supra, especially when you guys go for the manual transmission. It has that kind of truckish, clunky feel that all the Zs are known for, which some of you may find that to be a benefit because it's very charismatic. The styling of this car attracts attention everywhere. Just like the GR Supra, which also attracts a lot of stares, the Z does the same thing. Enthusiasts everywhere will break their necks to look at this car, especially if you have it in this yellow color, which really helps it stand out even more. In terms of the driving dynamics, the Z just doesn't quite have the same sporty looks on the outside that match its driving feel. I mean, it's still a fun to drive car. However, you notice that the chassis still feels a little bit old. The suspension definitely has a less stiff, less sporty feel versus the GR Supra, and the transmission, along with the engine, has a little bit of turbo lag. It's all for a very mechanical feel. It has a lot of drama, and that's definitely a good thing. But again, you can also drive other fast cars, and there are a lot of fast cars out there, especially with these electrics. I mean, I got 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds, which is quick, but it is going to be a little depressing when somebody in their Tesla Model 3 or a BMW i4 or even a Ford Mustang Mach-E or a Tesla Model Y pulls up next to you and smokes you at the light, because nowadays electric vehicles just are putting a lot of gas cars to shame. But again, the fact that Nissan decided to redesign the Z, give us a twin turbo V6, give us a manual transmission, give us a car that feels very analog in a digital world, really is just a win-win. And I really hope that sales do well for this car, because I want something like this to continue. I also want Nissan to continue the Z line further with a Nismo version. Would love to see them do closer to 500 horsepower. They did mention that this platform was not designed to accommodate a convertible. The convertible apparently didn't sell very well either. I would love to see them do a convertible version of this car. But really, I think what a lot of enthusiasts are looking for next is the Nismo. So if you are interested in the new Z, make sure you go ahead and put this at the very top of your list. You really can't go wrong between the GR Supra and the Z. For the fact that you can get this car for around $50,000 and give you 400 horsepower is just a win-win in general for a lot of enthusiasts. Now, speaking of which, I mentioned earlier the price. This car starts at $39,900 for the base Sport. That does not include, however, a limited slip differential or the upgraded brakes and a lot of the performance goodies. You're going to want to spend at least 10 grand for the performance trim, so you're looking at a price around $49,900. Now, this Proto Spec version is around $3,000 more on top of that, but again, it's a rare car. There's only 240 that are going to be made. As tested, my tester with destination came into around $56,000, which puts it as in the same price realm as the GR Supra. I will say the Supra is around $3,000 to $4,000 more expensive. And remember, the Supra comes standard with a 4-cylinder. This comes with a twin turbo V6. So there's a lot of horsepower per dollar here. That's a lot of value that's built in. And that's kind of what the Z nameplate has always been known. Just keep in mind that trying to get one of these is tough right now with all the supply chain issues. I heard that one dealer apparently in the US was charging like a 70 grand markup. So at $56,000, this is definitely a great deal. If you're gonna pay over $100,000 for it, hey, if you can't afford it, that's more power to you. But just keep in mind, trying to get one of these is definitely going to be a tough proposition. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 Nissan Z. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.